All right. Thanks for being with me, everybody. So, New Year's, it's the seventh day of the new year, and it's a great time for manifestation and thinking about what we'd like to see happen in 2017. So, I thought it would be a really fun time to do a manifestation webinar, and I'm really excited to have all of you with me because I can tell you that yesterday's webinar was really very interesting and went in some very amazing places that I wasn't expecting. So I'm really excited to expand upon that today and to strengthen and enhance in any way possible our capacity, not that I'm doing it, but being is doing it, strengthen and enhance the capacity of divine being, divine intention to very masterfully move from the unmanifest level of creation to the manifest level of creation, concisely, with intention, and create like a boss. Okay, so let's do this. So for the new people, the 1 minute, what is energy work? Energy work is directing attention intelligently in order to activate the quality of divine being, of which attention is made. Attention is divine being. So it goes into a particular area and it activates its own nature, and it's complete and whole and fulfilled. So if there's an area that's unfulfilled, the attention moves into that area and it activates the quality of fulfillment in that area. The part of the art, if we want to call it an art, part of the glory of energy healing is that we are learning to find the concise location to apply the attention. When we say applying attention intelligently, it means going in to very specific spots and getting the attention right in where it belongs. If there's, for example, an imbalance or an unhappiness somewhere in life, then there's a seed of that imbalance. Somewhere there's where the point from where it sprouts. And the idea of energy work is we go into that spot, apply attention intelligently to that spot, and the result is that the source of the unhappiness is transformed into fulfillment, completion, totality, expression of cosmic intent, divine evolution, and the result is that things change on the surface of life for the better. Okay, that's our 1 minute. So I want to also do, for everybody who wasn't here yesterday, of kind of a brief review / expansion on yesterday's discoveries. I know we've got several people coming back for more this morning, so I'm not going to actually utterly reiterate everything that happened yesterday, but I did want to bring everybody up to date also. So yesterday's webinar, interestingly, focused the whole webinar, basically, we were at the spirit level of the physiology. So that brings in, for new people, another little point, which is that the range of the self, what we think of as our self, ranges from unmanifest to manifest, and spirit level is way at a very abstract level. And the reason that awareness was focused at the spirit level of the physiology yesterday was because it's the subtler levels of the physiology where the mechanics of manifestation are in their essential or primordial form. This is the area where we want to bring our attention if we want to manifest something. Needs to be right there, right at those delicate levels of creation, so that energy is used efficiently, and the byproduct of the work done is of maximum benefit, maximum effectiveness. So at the spirit level of creation, we were exploring the environment, and what we found was that in the environment, and the environment, we should also point out, is one's own self. So we're exploring our own inner environment, and there, life has an interesting form. Life takes on a very interesting collective form. And the form, like if you want to call it the physical form, like the shape, is very, very simple as far as what the physiology looks like. It's very, very simple. A collective, simple physiology. But the quality or the way in which consciousness moves or functions at that level is very, very sophisticated. It is very beautiful. It is very amazing. So in a way, it kind of reflects a little bit of a perspective, or it reflects a perspective on the relative level of experience, because all of us experience living our lives through our physiologies, which are the antenna of the universe, and we deal with the practicalities of day-to-day life. You wake up in the morning, it's good to bathe, it's good to eat something during the day, etc., etc., do meditation, whatever you like to do. So from the perspective of the spirit level of creation, all the stuff that's important at the physical material level of creation is kind of simple. Just like the physiology looks kind of simple down at that level, but what's happening with consciousness is very rich and complex. What's happening at our level, as far as the way in which the creation manifests, is from that perspective is very simple. So we wanted to do a big activation at that level so that the things that we deal with at this level of creation in our physical bodies becomes less complicated and effortless. So the first principle was to create a kind of a marriage between what we know to be ourself at the physical material, the denser levels of the physiology, mind, body, feelings, and this very, very long-term, there's an invincibility at the spirit level of creation, because the physiology is so simple that it is highly indestructible. It is invincible. There's a lot of invincibility in the physiology at that level, which means it's been going on for a really long time. And this is the part of the physiology that you've maintained. It's like a consistency of the being, even since way before there even were humans, and even since before there was Earth, and even since like the beginnings of the manifestation of the universe. So that's a long time. There's a long memory of self at that level of being. So this activation of the long memory is essential to help reframe the sense of self. And you can say, well, what does my sense of self have to do with my ability to manifest? But the answer is very simple. If we think of ourselves as weak or pathetic or incapable, then what we manifest will reflect that. And if we know ourselves to be master manifestors of the universe, then the range of possibility of what we are able to manifest expands. Now I'm seeing awareness is going into, and I also encourage everybody to watch yesterday's webinar because there was a lot going on there. What I'm feeling happening today, this is what being wants to do, this is what you guys want to do, is to start working the connections up to the denser levels of the physiology, of the environment as well, of the creation as well. So the first thing that I'm feeling happening is kind of an increase of energy and an upgrade in the energy frequency. And when the energy frequency upgrades, that can cause a little bit of stirring of certain imbalances that stand in the way of manifesting or structuring creation at maximum capacity. So fear is clearing. Some fear, just a little. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, nice. Okay, and so you guys, all of us together, are responsible for the drawing from the environment of particular energy, intelligences, structures, frequencies, which are helpful in today's live webinar. So fascinating to me. I'm seeing last night what we had were, it was nighttime, right? So all the starlight was coming on. So we were drawing in that energy. And that was responsible for the awakening of the memory of the eternal manifesting capabilities. Now what's happening is an integration and working with the relationship between individual physiology and consciousness. We're starting to work in the gaps, the field between this spirit level of the physiology and the dense level of the physiology. And there's such beautiful, interesting, fascinating layers of reality in there. Definitely feeling a nice activation of the sort of energies that are responsible for these pretty designs and shapes. Lots of good earth energies, lots of Davic energies, lots of, like yesterday, and I bow down and acknowledge, because it seems to be at this time appropriate to do so, those individuals participating in today's webinar who are not in physical form. Thank you very much for being with us and for adding the perspective and the wisdom and the energetic support to this process. So one of the main focuses of yesterday's webinar was to bring individuality and conscious mind into a place of being able to honor and comfortably offer appreciation and love to the part of the self which is so simple that it's hardly recognizable as human. And in that process, the cellular level of the physiology got a huge healing, a huge upgrade. So I'd like to have that information come in to everybody on this webinar as a download right now, the upgrade for the cellular health of the physiology. And that comes in the form of such incredible love, like the level of devotion and love experienced at this spirit level of physiology is astounding. It's not, even if you think of our world's greatest saints, you know, Gandhi and Mother Teresa and the holy tradition and Gurudev, you know, the greatest ones. Well, it's nice to put attention on them, isn't it? Jesus. Lots of great saints. I know I missed a few. The degree of devotion that they were able to express in the relative field, giving and giving and giving. St. Francis was still only fractional compared to the level of devotion which is lived at the spirit level of the physiology all the time by all aspects. It is huge. And this quality of devotion is communicating to the cells of the physiology. It is a love beyond all loves. And the cells of the physiology individually are able to offer the love back into the field of pure being. Okay, that is an energy upgrade. And for those individuals not in physical bodies, they don't have physical cells, but they also have component parts. So that is also an interesting upgrade taking place there. Everybody upgrades. So offering back into the wholeness of creation, this creates an endless loop. This creates like a Mobius strip type of figure eight type of thing where it goes from the being cells to the wholeness. And it's very, very integrative of divine expression at a cellular level of the physiology. And this, from our physiologies, is thus communicating to the biological, the microbiome of the physiology, and the good bacteria in the body that are responsible for so many of the important healthful functions of the physiology are also receiving a download at this time. They're receiving the same one that the cells experienced. This exquisitely joyful devotion energy, which flows to the mother of creation and then folds back into the physiology at a cellular level for our cells of our body and for the microbiome of the body, is creating a lot of light in the body. So I'm seeing everybody's bodies kind of light up with a value of lightness, which is non-physical. And again, it's very interesting because I'm seeing a pattern here. It's just a little pattern. But in order to work with this spirit level of physiology yesterday, it was necessary for the consciousness to take on some of the innocence and sweetness and compassion and tenderness present at that level. That in order to really become proficient in communicating, internal communication loops, the individuality with the spirit level, innocence, sweetness to an extreme. So now, in order to communicate at this little bit denser levels, we're starting to bring it up. This lightness in the body is required because the laws of nature or the structures of our environment that are responsible for incredible mastery over the relative field of creation are mostly light. That's the level where it's very non-physical. So I'm seeing that at a physical level of the body, lightness is being integrated into all the cells of the body. So interesting. I'm just checking in with the ancestors because we know the ancestors are at that molecular level and how that affects them. How does it affect? I'm asking into the field of pure being. How does that affect the DNA of the physiology? So the first thing that's coming back from the question is it's definitely affecting how, okay. Oh, more is coming in. Excuse me. It comes in fast. Okay, so there's an intelligence upgrade taking place in the nucleus of the cells, in the DNA. It has to do with, and boy, I'm not a doctor here, so I don't know all the details, but I can just tell you what I'm seeing energetically. Is it has to do with the way the cells of our body work with proteins. Proteins are kind of like, they're sort of like the tools of the cells in certain ways. I mean, this is what I'm seeing. They're like the tools. A lot of the material that's built in the body is, built out of proteins. And the proteins are made of amino acids. And the amino acids are like in patterns. They form together in different patterns. I'm just reading this best I can, guys, without being a medical person. While this is going on, there is also a familiarization taking place. That's what it is. Between individual consciousness and the qualities of intelligence that are responsible for changes, transformations, and manifestations at cellular level, at the protein level of the physiology. The DNA molecule is expanding its vocabulary, basically. That's what I'm seeing. It's learning to work with a wider range of combinations of amino acids. This lightness. So what does the lightness have to do with it? I appreciate you guys bearing with me because this is sort of like discovery phase here going on. It may be a little slower, but it's the good stuff. It's the meaty stuff. What does the lightness have to do with the ability of the DNA to upgrade and expand its capacity to read amino acids, to put them together to produce more forms, more codons, right? They're called codons, or those little mixes of like three forms at the same time. It's expanding, because the denseness in the physiology was binding, and it disallowed the formation and cognition of a broader spectrum of combinations. I'm offering the whole thing back to Divine Being, that Divine Being decides which combinations and which mixes are right. Okay, so the beautiful question. My darling has asked me a question. Will this help to manifest a healthy body? Yes. And I didn't mention that there's a lot that I also don't say because there's like a huge amount going on here. But one of the ways in which this is manifesting greater health in the physiology, that was her question, will this manifest a healthy body, is the cells are producing structures which capably allow them to eradicate free radicals from the physiology. It allows them to cleanse themselves better. And this is where we left off yesterday, where all the cells in the body upgrading their capacity to eliminate free radicals from the system. And the free radicals are responsible for damage and corruption that comes into the cells, among other things. I know we've talked also about DNA and the telomeres, but the free radicals, I see. Okay, big picture just flew in. Okay, so let's see if we can lay this out for everybody. This is interesting. Okay, so in this field of the spirit body, where the collective of reality has its station, there's such invincibility that the negativity that we deal with at the relative level of creation, that we deal with in our world, you know, both from a societal level, individual life level, whatever, it cannot penetrate or touch or damage or create really trouble for the physiology at that spirit level. It really can't. The physiology is so simple. It kind of, I was saying to everyone yesterday, it kind of looks like little worms or little strings of light. I was wondering at one point, could those be like super strings or something? Because they're just so invincible. However, because of that, a lot of the elements that we find prevalent at this relative level of creation that are problems go in, some of their subtler form can hide down there at that spirit level of creation. I spent a lot of time last night looking at this and asking my own Divine Being, to give some more information. So that's coming out now. Thank you, everybody. If it weren't for you, couldn't do it. So what that means is, because we have to ask ourselves, how is it that a nice, sweet, kind, thoughtful, loving person has trouble just keeping their health together when people of malintent, and I don't have to name names because they're all over the news, can do yucky, awful, terrible, cruel things to others. How can they get away with doing something that's obviously not life-supporting and not aligned with natural law and not aligned with cosmic evolution so easily? How can certain people have so much resource to be able to create havoc, even at collective levels of society, and be able to suppress the, for example, certain kind of technological evolution of our world? How can they do that so easily and effortlessly when nice people who you would think would have the blessings of the whole creation behind them because they live their lives in purity and goodness and for the sake of others, can just barely scrape by day to day? Why? The answer is, once one finds the way to root the desire in the spirit field, in this field, and I'm using the word spirit, but boy, don't get confused, because let's call it this field of the innocence. We need to call it that instead. That's the level of innocence right there, because that's the quality, that's sort of one of the overriding qualities of being at that level. That word spirit, it has all kinds of, right, ghosts and all kinds of, we don't want to go there. No, this is innocence. This is the field of pure innocence. It is the place, innocence as a quality, but it's also the place, innocence with a T as a noun. Those who are so innocent reside there. And yet they're so invincible that any kind of even dark tentacles from the darker activities can go sit and hide there and can maintain their stranglehold on the economic system or whatever systems, the military, the political, whatever they can hold, because they're rooted in a quality of invincibility, because invincibility is there in the field of innocence. We could call that the innocent level of the physiology. I've been looking for a name for it ever since I realized that we had to switch causal and spirit. Innocent. So the time has come. I couldn't do this by myself. I tried all night, you guys, but it needed a collective to manifest. The devotion is activating in an extremely pure, extremely multiplied up way at the level of innocence of the physiology, and in so doing is lovingly, gracefully, and gently undoing the tentacles of darkness. Undoing the tentacles. That is why, now I understand, that is why we have a collective also of individuals, if we want to call them individuals, or I would say a liveliness of our own if we're thinking our own physiology includes the whole universe, then very, very active, lively manifesting forth of the levels of our physiologies that we think of as divine being, as divine beings, such as angels, devas. The field of that level of our intelligence that's responsible for things like deciding exactly which flower opens first and how many little pods of flowers on each section and so forth. That level of intelligence, that's as much responsible for creating these amazing flowers behind me as it is for creating the stars in the sky and so forth. That level is very awake, and it's very kind of actively engaged in today's webinar and is benefiting from this process, because some of these hidden seeds of energy that has been on Earth centuries and created boundaries and a weight, a kind of repressive weight on humanity that is finally revealed. It can only stay as long as it's hidden from awareness. But as soon as awareness gets in there, it starts to bring fulfillment and wholeness and totality into the space. And so these seeds, we can call them seeds of greed and selfishness. Seeds of greed and selfishness is a good word for it. And, doesn't that just make it not seem so sinister? It's almost like if that's all it is little seeds of greed and selfishness, well, any mother can bring the child to the lap and say, "Now, my darling, you can't always be first." Whatever. It's only happening because the loops of this devoted love are flowing from the cells of the physiology into the source of creation and activating a quality or a level of compassion and love and empathy that is required to undo the seas of darkness at that level. Literally, it's playing with fire. Literally, if we went in there with our cannons loaded and said, "Oh, here is a form of darkness which has been repressing mankind for centuries," we can go back and unfurl the ugly story and how much human suffering and how much, horribleness. And that wouldn't work. You can't get, people have been trying to do that for centuries. And it doesn't work. This works. This actually works. Oh, 2017 could be good, guys. Because what this means is, in this way which doesn't create negative karma for us. And this is you guys doing it. I'm telling you, I tried to do this on my own. I couldn't do it. It's only because we're in the group that we're doing it. Yeah, it's because of your consciousness that this is happening, that our consciousness working together. And it took the activation of a very fine, between the spirit and causal level of the physiology, this sort of really big waking up of a kind of an inner strength that all of us possess. And it's important right now that integration is taking place with that level of inner strength too. That's just, didn't want that to get by without mentioning it. And of the level of intelligence of self, which we tend to associate with mythological or divine or celestial beings. It's the level of self. Oh, that's why the lightness had to go into the cells before we came to this point. Because what's the difference between the physiology of an angel or the physiology of a high elf or the physiology of a fairy or something? What is the difference between that physiology and this physiology? Besides that they can fly, okay, is that their bodies have more light in them. Their bodies have more light. And I'm saying there as if it's separate from you, but it's not separate from you. That's why we have to do the integration thing. We have to come back to that. And it has to integrate more concisely. More refined integration, more, I'm looking. We're having to, a lot of illusion is clearing right now. There are certain belief systems associated with identification of self with celestial divine being, which has to do with it being useless or distracting. So here's the deal. You are totality. You are the universe. You are everything. If we get lost at that level of self, which is in the manifest range of creation, then yeah, it's really distracting and it will be useless and ultimately will stop us from functioning effectively in a holistic way. But if we push it off and ignore it and shove it to the back and say, no, I don't like you, I'm not going to be part of you, I don't accept you, this isn't me, then we're also disallowing the use of our own potential. But it's not really a double bind. It sounds like a double bind, but it's not. The secret is that the integration starts from the deepest inside level and it works its way up. So we're coming up into like the causal level of the physiology. So the work that we did yesterday was here in the celestial and innocent level of the physiology. So then it comes up to the next level of integration. Totality has to be maintained at every point. If it's not, then traps. It could be, which is another reason why perhaps it was necessary for us to do this as a collective, because as a collective we are stronger. Oh, that's it. Oh, I'm feeling you guys. I'm feeling your strength. I'm feeling your, can you see the cars passing? They're like flashing the car light across my face. I'm okay. This is good. So what's happening is an open flow and integration of communication skills and communication pathways is activating in our collective. And it's a rather larger collective even than just the names on my little list. Because it moves through space, time, and includes everybody, future, past, and so forth. And all those in the body, not the body, all the levels. But this communication that we as a collective have access to the resource that each of us bring from our individualized perspective. I'm offering that loving devotion that goes beyond description. It's like, what do they say in the Bible? It is a love that passeth understanding, like that. It's that into this collective structure of the field of our own inner strengths and resources combined, and offering that back to divine being. And here comes the wave from being, coming back into the collective to integrate, to accent. It's very interesting that when, and this was something I talked about yesterday, that when the creation created, that the way nature creates the creation, manifesting the physical level of creation, it doesn't manifest like a big soup. It doesn't just manifest like a big non-defined jello. It manifests with specific forms. Look at that. It's dark there, and it's light up here, and this has got a little pink in it. It's different. And this bit out here is completely different, right? It's all different. It's all different. There is definition of form. And so we're talking about manifesting. I know a lot of you have specific desires and wishes and things that you would like to see manifest for 2017. Some of them are more on the physical realm, like health or wealth, and some of them are on a more spiritual level, like more expansion of consciousness, better alignment with divine intention, and so forth. But the fact that entropy, this is the way the physicists describe it, entropy is essential to allow for specified forms to manifest. This is what we're looking at right now. Is that in the context of our collective? We have a question. Here's a question from St. Louis. Maharishi said that at the subtle levels, the universe consists of streams of Rishi, streams of Devata, and streams of Chandas. And then made a gesture with his hands, something like smoothing long strands of hair or rain coming down. I believe he was referring to the flow of individuality through time. Wow, beautiful point. I believe this would be it. This feels to me like this is it. This streams of Rishi, streams of Devata, streams of Chandas behind. And what we need to look at in order to move from that level, was very, I encourage you all yesterday's, we stayed there for the whole webinar, to the manifest level of creation. How do I manifest my body so that it is ageless and timeless? Or how do I manifest abundance in my world? Or how do I manifest the love of my life, or whatever? We move from that level, that subtle level where those streams of being are kind of, they're like folding in on themselves like this. No one is more important than the other, to the interface between the three gunas, which are sattva, rajas, and tamas, otherwise Englishly translated into purity and non-purity. And rajas, when I experience rajas energetically, it's kind of like a yeah kind of energy. It's kind of got this sort of driving quality behind it. So you have purity, which is very quiet. It has a kind of a, almost like a sort of silence in it, like sort of intimate connection with divinity. And then you've got rajas, which is kind of working. It's working the system all the time, working. And then tamas, which is, kind of decaying and destroying and breaking down and like that. So, and I bring those up because what we're doing is we are structuring within ourselves in this webinar the capacity to master the elements of creation. I did mention that a bit yesterday too. Space, air, fire, water, and, space, air, fire, water, and earth. And what happens is the three gunas, purity, moving it, and decaying, interface with those five elements. And by mastering the relationship between those three and those five, then, and this is done with consciousness. Consciousness directs, consciousness can influence whether, for example, if you wanted to make a fire, then you would like to have more of a decaying energy on the water element and more of a sattva and rajas energy on the fire element. And then you need to have a certain balance with the air element, because we know the air interfaces with the fire to feed it. But we're aiming at doing something very sophisticated here. We want to take that. We're not doing something as simple as building a fire, even though we know for our ancestors that was a big deal. What we're doing is isolating out or accenting, familiarizing, and working with the aspects of consciousness specifically responsible for interfacing with the three gunas and understanding the laws of nature of how that relationship between individual consciousness and these three gunas interfaces with the five elements. And I'm looking at where we need to go in that picture in order to be of maximum use for everybody. Because the download is coming in and adjustments are being made individually for everybody in the group. And we're back to our nice big group here of how the whole group upgrades simultaneously. That's it. As a group, we have a greater capacity to draw in or bring in and balance. Oh, that's nice. I like that. So one of the cool things about being in a group is that we have many perspectives, and many perspectives provide broader understanding, broader comprehension. And that helps everybody stay more on task and stay more even in understanding of what's happening. So right now, what's happening is the celestial body is humming and resonating in the quality of pure knowledge, and that is interfacing with the innocent level of the physiology, which flows in exquisite devotion. And that combination, thank you, is revealing the nature of the three gunas. And that is being understood first, interestingly, it's being understood first by the finer intelligence of the physiology, the cellular and microbiome level of the physiology. So we're understanding it at a cellular level first. And how about the ancestors or the DNA, that area? Oh, that's why we had to have the DNA upgrade earlier, because we literally wouldn't be able to understand what's coming in right now if we hadn't had the DNA upgrade already first. You guys are good. This is good. So DNA upgrade allows for individual understanding of the three gunas. It's their interaction that gives rise to the specific forms of creation. What I'm looking at is how does this interaction, how can we position ourselves in order for the interaction between the three gunas and the whole creation, influenced by our consciousness, create only greater alignment with cosmic evolution, greater capacity to express divinity in the relative. And what I'm feeling is a movement of energy at a very fine level of the physiology. I'm feeling a certain amount of that energy movement originating from the third chakra. Almost like a pulsing energy in the third chakra and up through the chest area. So we're just breaking it down to its energy, how it feels energetically. There's some discordant feeling being released through the face, through the sinuses, in the head. It looks like a purification in the area of the brain. And we know because of the blood-brain barrier that when the brain purifies itself, it only does so through the tears and the mucus, right? Because it can't really, like, you don't have any lymph nodes in there. So lymph nodes are all over in this area. So this is some purification taking place in the brain and head area. And I'm in my antenna. So I can only tell you what my experience is basically and what I can infer from what I'm reading from your physiologies. But I can tell you, I just now had a big opening in my auditory cortex, and I can literally hear better than I could like 5 seconds ago. It's way clearer. So that purification, that brain purification. So I would like to let's offer that brain purification to being, back to being, that it can roll as required through all the cortices associated with sensory perception in order to purify everyone's senses of perception back to perfection. it's releasing from the system like a mixture between discordant feelings. I'm feeling particular up in the sinus area, as the purification's happening up there. What I'm experiencing is all those times that you cry, it's a little bit like a crying feeling, but it's not like a full out, oh, I'm sobbing. I mean, I'm obviously not sobbing or something here, but there's a discordant feeling connected to and associated with that. And that feeling, that's it. The feeling that goes with it is that feeling of, I didn't get my desire fulfilled. That's the feeling. So that feeling held in the physiology, at the etheric level of the physiology, is responsible for blocking the capacity to manifest. Oh, well, that was almost a no-brainer. So we're clearing that feeling of, I don't get my desires fulfilled. I don't get to be first. Remember when you were like 3 or 2 and you first went to some kindergarten or preschool and you wanted to be first. Everybody wanted to be first. Only one kid could be first. I wanted to be first. In the eyes of your divine, you are always first. This is your story. This is your movie. This is your world that you are creating. You are first. It's fine. And we are all first together. We are all in it together. And really, nobody's bigger or better than anybody. Nobody. Because each person's perspective is absolutely vital and puts you first when we're dealing with the concern that's closest to your reality. I felt those words that came out of my mouth. They went out to a big collective. So we're working now. What's happening, our group, is sowing seeds. Now, this is very good for everybody's individual desires to manifest for this year. But what we're doing as a collective is we're sowing seeds for earth changes and societal changes which are maximally beneficial for everybody. We're working with the fact that everybody's got their own movie that they're watching. And the seeds, everybody's movie has a reality in the field of innocence. It has a root down in the field of innocence. And the light, which is now possessed of everyone in this healing session at a cellular level, is a light which is universal in nature. I'm looking at it compared to other lights that I'm familiar with. And what I'm seeing is it doesn't seem to be specifically in the starlight direction or specifically in the sunlight direction, but it seems to be a beautiful mix of the two qualities of light, of the starlight and the sunlight. So what that I am inferring from that is that what the seed that is being sown right now will come to fruition. It will sprout up like the flower behind me at the equinox. Because that's when the two light energies are in a perfect mix. They're in a perfect balance. And ultimately we are in order for us not to get caught in the details of the fine realms of creation, but to maintain the structure of totality while working like a boss, like a master, at those areas or levels of our consciousness that interface with the relative and actually create change, actually manifest form. This balance of light is required. And I'm just asking, being, where does the balance of light go, and to what capacity and degree? What do we need to know about it? And what I'm seeing is it's starting by establishing in the gap. It's establishing in 3 gaps at the same time. It's establishing at the gap between the finest level of manifest form and unmanifest. It's establishing in that gap. It's establishing the gap between the subtle levels of the physiology and the dense levels of the physiology. So right there, in that gap. And it's establishing the gap between manifested self and manifested environmental reality, where we experience that we interface with our world. And I'm asking, is the light the same in all three locations? And I'm getting a yes. And I'm asking, is there anything else we need to know about the light? What I'm seeing is that the light seems brighter in the place where it interfaces with the external world. And it seems kind of like, for those of you who are familiar with the pulse diagnosis, right? I don't know if I can get my hand around like that. So you've got the three fingers. And what I find with myself is always these two are weaker, you know, so I don't feel the pulse as strongly with the two lower fingers as with the upper finger. And so it looks a little bit like that. It's almost like these 3 points in the physiology are like those 3 points of the fingers in the pulse. And that the 2 lower ones are a little bit weaker, and particularly this one down here is, it's almost darker. And I'm asking why, and the energy read that I'm getting on that is it dates back to ancient humans. There's a thread connected to that quality of light that's sitting in the gap between the complete unmanifest and the finest manifestation of form. And it dates back to ancient humans. And it has to do with something that we're carrying in our physiologies now, associated with this very long tradition of human form. I'm getting a big read, and I would just like to say, everybody, for the record, that there are a lot of people that talk about a lot of stuff that's kind of related to energy healing, right? I'm sure a lot of you've been you've listened to Back Gap interviews and all different. And at some point or another, we all have to make decisions because we can't do absolutely everything. And at some point, I kind of made a decision that I sort of wasn't going to move in the whole extraterrestrial area, because it seemed, for me as a mother and working with healing, that it makes more sense to just kind of focus on all the children of Earth and to work with the human physiology like that. And what we can do from our level of consciousness. Because if, you know, it's not that I don't believe that is life everywhere in creation. Of course there is. It's just that we live this life now. It doesn't make sense to get caught up in if some life is happening on a planet in the, an Alpha Centauri or something, it doesn't have such a big influence on us here. But the point that's being made is that time of ancient humanity, so we're going back like about 160,000 years. What I'm seeing is if we go back 160,000 years, the light is a lot better and clearer at this level. And that somewhere in the process, the light at this level of the gap and also this middle level of the gap got a little, something happened or changed in the physiology, which was responsible for it not having the capacity to be as bright. And so, since we've been doing lots of activation and enlightenment of the subtle levels of the physiology that sit right between those two lights, right? I'm going to ask into our collective and into the collective of everyone's physiology, so we get everybody's perspective here. Is there anything that can be done to modify shapes or changes at this level of the physiology in order to allow that light to shine a lot brighter and better? So changes are taking place now in the gap between the celestial and the spirit innocent level of the physiology. And I've got another question here. This is a question from Europe. Thank you. So the question is, which webinar is this, please? This is a webinar on manifestation. And what we're doing in this webinar, but it's mostly oriented towards restructuring ourselves, restructuring the instrument so that the instrument is a better manifester with regards to specific desires. Like everybody in the webinar has different specific desires for their life, for their year 2017. But rather than working with the specific desires, what's happening in this webinar is the active work required to create the platform so that nothing is out of range of your capacity to manifest. Nothing. Anything. Because who knows, in 4 or 5 months, maybe the desire changes a little bit and the desire to manifest something is some new desire comes up. So what we're doing here is we're working on how do we define the self in such a way that the self can manifest anything. And I mean way outside the capacity. If you look at yesterday's webinar, you'll see descriptions of this, way outside the capacity of anything that we can even imagine at this point. We want to extend the capacity to manifest beyond anything you can imagine. Beyond anything. Because if we extend our capacity to manifest beyond anything we can possibly imagine manifesting, then manifesting all kinds of stuff here at the relative level, creation's like easy peasy. I could do it you can do it in your sleep. It's so easy. Yeah? So I hope that does that answer the question, my dear? Thank you for being with us. Thank you for us all being together for this work that we could not do individually. We need everybody. We need everybody's consciousness there because that's right. That's right. So here, it's not a coincidence that that question came up at this moment. Oh, my darling, you're so welcome. At this moment in creation, there you can see she sent a chat to everybody. Because this beautiful girl who's chatting with us all here, this beautiful girl has in her subtle levels of the physiology, there is, here in this gap, is completely pure, is completely correct. What she has going on, it's like, you know how the American Indians have, the First Nations people have a tradition of that at the 7th generation or at the 12th generation something would happen. What it means is that they knew that the DNA would be rarefied sufficiently at a particular generation of offspring in order to be able to produce people who could do certain things that the grandparents and the great-grandparents and the great-great-grandparents knew that they weren't quite actually physically capable of doing that. So this beautiful girl who's sent her voice who's like a flower, who's brought her voice up like the flower into the group here, she is the generation. She is the generation who has that purity in this gap between celestial and innocent level of physiology. And of course, what we know is that we don't have to produce multiple offspring now in order to create this effect in our own physiology. Thanks to the technology of energy healing, we can, and by the blessings of experts like you, we can all be healed. We can all be healed at that level. That's where the blockage was. It was underneath the field of the innocence. There was a little blockage right there. Oh, and I'm just feeling that as it's shifting. And from this physiology is experiencing like a kind of an expanding out of waves of very fine energy that are going all the way out to the tips of the nerves and the tips of the capillaries, like a kind of tingling, moving out through the whole physiology out to its edges. And I'm feeling particularly in the kind of the bigger muscles in my physiology. And I'm offering back with all gratitude into the source of creation and all of this download for everybody in the group. Yeah. So this anonymous question is, can we manifest society without negativity? Yes, yes. And in fact, we've done some preliminary work on that in this healing webinar. I can imagine that we all have our individual desires for 2017, but certainly this, within the context of this collective, of this webinar, we all, of course, desire a world without suffering. We all desire a world without negativity. We all desire that everybody in our whole world has all the resources and the access to everything required in order to live their life at the highest possible level of dignity, wholeness, the highest level of comfort. So, can we manifest society without negativity? Can this group? Can this group? Can this group? What I'm getting, I offered the question into my own infinite being, and the answer that came back is, this is one of the characteristic features of 2017, is that we will be working more and more as collectives, spiritual collectives. We are a spiritual collective today, you guys. This collective, you can feel your individuality, you can go in and feel the wholeness of the group. And the wholeness of this group has so much strength and purity and intelligence in it. I love it. So we have the wholeness of this group. There are other groups. There are other groups who are functioning in a sacred manner. In fact, this is the topic of the next webinar, is Welcome to the Inside Tribe, because this is the direction that I see 2017 moving. In order to eradicate all negativity, society without, like 100% without negativity, requires our ability to become more masterful in working together as a spiritual group, as spiritual groups. That is why I'm starting to meet. There's no money involved. It's another freebie. About 70% of my offerings are free, right? Starting to meet in little groups with people, little groups. Because as we meet in groups, we start to expand our own individual capacity to function in this spiritual space together. It's like we've created a kind of a holy space where all of our beings find common ground. We find common reality of experience. And then using that to eradicate the negativity, to heal the physical body of Mother Earth. Yeah. So the first thing we did was we cleared out seeds of a negative intention which were residing in the field of innocence. And that includes the collective of humanity. And that happened in this webinar. And that was big. But we can go back and examine that again, because the more uplifted our world is, the more easy it is for all of us to manifest our personal desires. So I'm going back into, I'm asking being, because this group is a powerful force. So, okay, this is good. This is exciting. What's happening? Oh, it's happening. Okay, so our group is coherent, sufficiently coherent, that we are able to now open up the field of life, the web of life is able to open up coherent communication channels between our webinar collective and other circles. And all of us are able to circulate into those other circles. It's like, those diagrams that you get in math where you've got a set there, you've got a set over here of real numbers, and you got a set over here of all, some other all even numbers or something. So what's happening is the sets are starting to overlap, are able to overlap. I'm just watching what's happening. It seems to be um, interfacing and overlapping. Again, this is the second time in this webinar, you guys, we've kind of nudged up against the whole extraterrestrial community area of our collective consciousness. But the fact is that there are circles. There are lots of circles of people with very strong spiritual orientation who are working together collectively and who are working together and both within and without our Mother Earth, and both within and without the manifested level of creation. Because what we've done in this webinar is we've done a huge integration between the field of innocence level of creation and the physical, this is my life level of creation. So the field is opening further. It's opening further. And there, in order to support and maintain a level of trust and safety and comfort for everybody, the requirement is the integration of innocence. The requirement is a healing for all those individuals in all those spiritual circles all over, because our world is full. There's the Oseti camp over in, North Dakota, and I know there are lots and lots. There are ashrams in India, and there are Buddhist temples in Asia, and there are all over the world. There are very spiritual groups all over the world, all over, that everybody receives the integration. This is like, humbly, you guys, this is our offering to the whole spiritual communities of the world, is this very impressive work that we've done in our 2 webinars yesterday and today. Oh, I really encourage you to watch yesterday's too, because so much there. Of the awakening of the field of innocence and its integration with the physical material level of our reality. We've come to our hour, and I just want you guys to know that this particular webinar, this Saturday webinar, was so much at the forefront of my own experience in this field that really a lot went down in the webinar that I was not really, please forgive me, I really wasn't as good at describing to you. Like, a lot of things went whisking by that was like, whoa, that was like a whole thing. And I didn't even say anything, right? So I can assure you that those elements that were present in today's healing webinar that didn't find expression on the level of speech will be coming out in the days and weeks to come. Assuredly, it will. And so it will be interesting to kind of unravel all that information and provide that for everybody through the distance energy work sessions, through the future webinars. Obviously, as I've indicated, our next webinar, we're going to go more into group work and what we can accomplish as a group. But to answer that question in a nutshell, I would say yes. The answer is yes, but we need to work with even larger groups. So I'll be doing that. I'm going to, for everybody who's watching around the place, I'm starting to travel a bit. My next stop will be Las Vegas area in February. And then I think I'm in Southern California in March. And I think we've got some more tentatives planned, but I don't think they've isolated down to actual dates. So that information, dates and locations of live presentations, will be up on the website soon with a pretty picture behind it. And I also wanted to just give a shout out to everybody who's on the webinar subscription program, because I just want you to know how much I appreciate you being on this program and what it means for us as a group. It creates, there are all these side benefits besides it, value-wise for you, it's great, is that that means also more consistent collective with the webinars each time, which I think may also be influence for how effectively we work together as a collective. So thank you, everybody, for being with me today. This has been really incredible, and I feel as if I've just got a huge body of more information now, and may you also enjoy integrating all this multiples of downloads that came through today's webinar, today's live webinar, and may they continue to unfurl for you, particularly if there were any that were a little bit of a challenge to receive during the webinar or during waking consciousness. I encourage you to watch for them in your sleep, because a lot of times the downloads can reveal very effectively, like say during dream consciousness, because the dreamscape is so malleable. You can just, it can just show itself really easily and so forth. So, may you enjoy the expansion and the unfoldment of the downloads that we covered today, that were the body of this healing webinar. It's been fabulous to have you with me. I love you all dearly, and I enjoy seeing you again at the next one, and all of us on the subscription program, and we'll just keep doing it. Please email me and let me know what your experiences are. I love feedback. Thank you. See you all soon.